Welcome to Contract Risks Training. Risk is the potential of losing something of value. In contracting, there are three primary categories of risk. 1. Cost risk. 2. Market risk. And 3. Performance risk. Inadequately defined statements of work and performance work statements cause increased cost risk. Cost risk is the potential for the government to spend more money on a contract than necessary. Normally, the first point of cost risk occurs when a contractor is reviewing a solicitation specifications and recognizes the likelihood that the cost to perform a contract will change, either before or during the contract's performance. So contractors, in an effort not to lose money, will increase their proposed prices to help compensate them for this perceived risk. The government will pay for this increased risk. Another way the government spends more than necessary and exceeds budget occurs when we issue inadequately defined solicitations and award inadequately defined contracts. Contractors traditionally recognize ambiguities, errors, and discrepancies in the contract specifications after contract performance begins. Because it's the government's responsibility for the accuracy of its contractual documents, it's the government which must pay for these ambiguities, errors, and discrepancies in the form of modifications and change orders. Or else we risk the contractor not performing the contract. The effect of inadequately defined requirements on cost risk endangers contract performance, reduces competition, and increases contract price. To mitigate cost risk, intentionally strive to balance cost risk between the contractor and the government by only issuing well-defined requirements documents. Describe work efforts in terms that can be quantified, measured, and where the end result is objectively described. This will help reduce cost changes after contract award. Also, when describing a requirement's level of effort, avoid using words like approximately, in excess of, and including but not limited to. These words alone increase cost risk to the contractor because it leaves the true level of effort open-ended and ambiguous and subject to change. Neither the government nor contractor should accept an unknown or uncontrollable cost risk. Volatile or unpredicted market conditions increase market risk. Market risk exists when changes in the marketplace occur, such as changes in the demand or accessibility of products or services, changes in the logistics, changes to laws and regulation, and/or changes in the demand for products or services. Changes in market conditions can drastically affect the prices, availability, and quality of the end products or services being purchased. When you assess market risk, ask yourself, what raw materials go into this procurement? Can we anticipate material shortages? Is the supplier market well established? Are there multiple commercial sources which sell this product or service? Can they support us from their current location? Is the labor market stable? How technically skilled does the contractor's workforce need to be? Can we expect labor costs to rise in 2, 3, or 4 years from now? And are there any logistical concerns? Multi-year contracts and contracts with options may be especially susceptible to increased levels of market risks. Taking a deeper look into areas which may be susceptible to market fluctuations will help you make well-informed business decisions. Decisions regarding the contract type, duration of contract, and contracting methods used to solicit the requirement will help you minimize market risk. Depending on the value of your requirement, you may need to accomplish a market research report. If required, this will require that you analyze the marketplace more closely, which is a good thing. Also, please note that it's not uncommon for an increase of market risk to either directly or indirectly increase cost risk. The third primary type of risk is performance risk. In assessing performance risk, you will want to consider and examine each contractor's ability to perform a requirement successfully. There are 5 primary areas that should be considered when evaluating performance risk. 1. How comprehensively the requirement is defined. 2. The type and complexity of the requirement. 3. The urgency of the requirement. 4. The existing technical skills available in the marketplace. And 5. How successfully the same or similar type contracts were performed in the past. Generally speaking, the larger and more complex the requirement, the more likely it is to have a higher performance risk. Likewise, the lower the complexity, the lower the performance risks. Once you know where risks exist, it becomes easier to identify ways to minimize the risk. For example, you may reduce cost risk by choosing the most ideal type of contract, reduce market risk by providing government-furnished equipment, or reduce performance risk by collaborating with industry and utilizing industry's best practices. Assessing risk, identifying risk, and mitigating risk comes down to your ability to identify the risk, determine what are acceptable or unacceptable levels of risk, and then critically think about how to minimize that risk with the decisions and resources you have at your disposal. Cost risk, market risk, and performance risk should each receive either a formal or informal risk assessment during the acquisition planning phase, no matter the value or complexity of the requirement. Not properly identifying, isolating, and mitigating any of these three types of risk can result with increased costs, delayed deliveries, administrative backlogs and/or disruption, or work stoppages to mission-critical performance requirements. Identifying, analyzing, and addressing program risks from the onset of the acquisition will help you and your team move smoothly through the acquisition process and hopefully avoid extensive document revisions as the acquisition progresses.